Dun, 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 dun. Today we are doing customer's request, and one nice person of you who watches this channel asked, could you tell us more about stretching skin, because there's some troubles for that person. So we will talk about techniques and stretching of skin, which seems simple in the beginning and gets funky when you have a bit more
experience
when you've done a bit more,
when you realize that it's a big that's a big role in tattooing, stretching, and how you stretch. Your journey starts from new again.
Quick intro, skippable, press in the description the time code. So welcome to Tattoo Shop Talk, which is sort of a weekly web show where we do these tips, tricks, tutorials, also there's product reviews and all sorts of tattoo shop related jazz.
And I just wanted to say that it's all improvised.
If that's something for you, then consider pressing subscribe button. There's also a nice bell next to it, so you see when all the new episodes come out. Feel free to comment and do all that likes and all that stuff. And now back to stretching the skin.
So what can I say? No one told me much about that from beginning, and you have the same experience, and I'm like, why? Like, this is actually really important. I know machines has to be right, and there's a big role in what needles you use and what ink and whatnot, but if you stretch wrong in hard spots like backs, ribs, chest, there is even inside upper arm, what do you call it, like biceps insides, you have to know where to place your arm, hand, and which way to go with the machine. One thing I learned really well by stretching the skin different directions, I learned how to use machine with different directions. I used it like upwards, downwards, sideways. When you start to stretch it and use your arm for stretching in different places, also your other arms start to feel more free, and if you learn the movement of machine, you can suddenly tattoo everywhere. It's no problem to tattoo ribs most of the times. Let's start with something.
So in this episode we will talk about tattooing and stretching skin, how we stretch, what we see, what's the ups and what's the downs, and what's the dangers of stretching skin. So let's start with just stretching the skin. What's the basics of stretching? How do you stretch? What's the info you can find online? Maybe you don't know that, but I know that. Carlos was the first person who explained me reasonable how to stretch skin, and it happened after many years being around tattooists who were just saying, well, you just hold it, you know, you just stretch it.
You have to feel something.
Yeah, you just feel it, what's the right amount. And then I stumbled upon a thing where it was mentioned 3-point stretch, where you stretch up, down, and with that hand, and then you have all that stretched out canvas where you do the thing. I also heard an opposite thing from tattooists, that you shouldn't rely on this hand too much because it can go sort of if it slips. But I guess you have to be careful anyway. So the basics is as many points as you can get, up, down, from side to side, and then it's all stretched, and then you do your thing. The thing you mentioned was directions, so you can tell a bit more about that.
Well, remind me. Yeah, like directions. So directions really important because, like, I think your mind doesn't work with both hands. When you start a tattoo and you move your arm, which holds tattoo machine, when you move your arm making the line, your left hand wants to move with it. So there is no stretching at all. Like, the real deal is when you go different directions with both arms. So the skin stretches more and more, and in one point,
or at least you keep it consistent.
Yeah, I think stretching too much, it's more painful for customer, and it's also a little bit harder to understand where your stencil line goes, because you stretch out so much that actually the flow is worse than when you stretch a bit. But that's what you have to actually learn doing this more and more. And you can realize, again, by the feeling, you can feel when it's too much, when it's not. In my experience, this was like a breaking point where I just went up with the line technique skills, and my lines got better.
Also that, like you told me, like you stretch this direction and you tattoo other direction, because I found like you can just see it, you see it as it happens. If you stretch that way and tattoo that way, then often you would push that skin towards that and it gets unstretched and the line goes from nice to you start to see all this happening on the skin and you're like,
and there's pretty much then there's no point for that hand to even be there. So you need that hand just for stretching out. Probably a lot of people know that, of course, but those who don't know, those who ask about stretching, this is like one of the most important things that I learned. After that, the step 2, that you know, when you go both ways, this hand starts to feel unstable, so sometimes you hold the elbow on your lap, so because the hand has a better balance,
like a support.
Yeah, it's like a support, but sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes your hand, your arm is again in a free flow, and it's been so many times that it's just not possible to do a perfect line by that technique. So I kind of decided the hand that I'm stretching with, I use that as a support for my right arm, which I use for making lines. So I usually put it on top of that hand, and then I go different directions. You could do smaller lines, but you don't actually have to do long lines. You do a little bit smaller, but at least your arm feels stable, and it's much more easy to tattoo. So these things, you know, and
also
these things, it's even like this, you know, different. You can experiment and you will figure out.
One dude I talked with, he said, I do a line when I'm steady. He said, it's always this or something. It's never this. It's not like you have it loose and you think like, oh yeah, I can pull it off. He said, once it's set dead there, then you can start to do all that.
And it's so important to do a line with one take, you know. You can't, when you start to do lines with a couple extra takes, that's wrong. You lose a lot of time, the customer is more in pain, and the tattoo looks scratchy.
They might look good in the beginning, but when they healed, because you went maybe this way back and the angle changed a bit, maybe the line, like, you know, it looks straight, but you went in this way, and then on the way back you went this way, and then when it's healed, it suddenly have all this situation going on. So that's
like, you have to remember the needle goes the way that machine is placed, and when you turn the machine sideways, it starts to push the ink on the side, so the line gets bubbly and not correctly straight. So you kind of have to always be also needle pointing the line one way, yeah.
Like,
and when you turn, you got like the needle has to go like this, in my opinion. When you want to make a nice line, the needle has to go this, and then you pull it this way, so the damage is less. And then you turn the same way, but sometimes there is no other options than go other directions. But that's why you have to study and learn all directions how to do it, and you can do it. And to do one way lining, that's just gonna make your days harder.
I mean, it's then so you stressful. Have to reposition yourself all the way, so you are always in that one movement.
It's just harder, and your days harder.
And on a direction, one tattooist explained me, is like, there's this situation going on, this situation going on, and this situation. So it's the depth, the angle, and where you hit it. So there's a lot of things involved. And stretching helps with that as well, because if you start to see the skin doing this, you have no idea where it's hitting and what's going on.
And again, like, you stress out, that makes your work less clean. I remember every time I did the rib tattoos, I was just struggling because I didn't know what to do with it. Like, every time I did, it was something new, it was something different. Again, the skin stretched, easy to stretch. Sometimes the skin is hard to stretch. Sometimes you stretch how you know is right and it doesn't work. And just recently I started to figure out more and more, and it's one of the reasons why the rib tattoos are hard to make. Is maybe the reason is your machine just can't do the work properly. So you have to again find a machine that can punch the ink really well, and all these small things. But like stretching is, in my opinion,
And also,
main.
one thing is how you stretch, other is how you position your customer.
Yeah.
Because if the customer is sort of, okay, do it, it's all already soft
Yeah.
and all that. If you lay them down, you know, make like also sometimes with some placements you wanna don't have the pillow, so they are a bit more stretched out and
This
all
is
that.
actually, if we talk about stretching, this is actually stretching skin as well. You just sometimes have to ask the customer to help you out. It's really good point. I forgot about it. Because, for example, top of the shoulder, some people put the arm rest here and the arm is like this. So this part, the skin goes more together, and that's why the shoulders are harder to tattoo. So better to do without anything. Just put it like this and then do the top. Sometimes when you do shoulder, you have to change like 5 times the position. And for beginners, it's always weird because they don't know if it's okay if you change that many positions, and they feel uncomfortable to ask the customer to change the position. But
Also, you wanna look like the big boys.
yeah,
you know?
it's like, oh, can you change again? Can you change again? It's weird, but I started doing this. It completely changed my world again, and it's every placement is different, and you have to figure out what's the best way. And don't be shy to tell the customer like, do a fucking bridge on you know.
Also, you recommended me for shoulder tattoos that sometimes you just need to lay customer down.
Yeah,
And like they're like, oh really? And I'm like, yeah, because then you can do all that stuff.
yeah, and again, a balance for your arm, and sometimes the design is just too hard. When you have to look at like this to the design, like for example, it's a lady's face with the body, and when you do it sideways, it's just harder for you to figure out where the shadow has to go. But
Plus, like most of the lines are maybe going this way, and then you are positioned wrong, so you can just find a way or lay them down and be like, okay, I'm in charge of this situation.
yeah, I would say like from here, from the elbow to middle, your upper arm, this you can tattoo like this easily. Like whatever it is, pillow beneath or
nothing.
armrest or nothing, like this. I think when you place it more like with the angle, it's easier again for your arm. But this part you can just do it. And sometimes when you go inside, let the person stretch your arm. Again, this will be stretched. Like think about how the body, like the skin works, and every time you're gonna stretch a little more. Armpits. Some people struggle to do tattoos here when you have to do background. It just does not go in. The ink is not going in, and then again you do like this for the customer. This part is like stretched now. So all that stuff.
Also, for this place, I often lay people down because they relax, they're not looking at what I'm doing, and it's a difference if they're sitting like this or it's like this when they're laying down. So that's that.
Again,
So stretching comes hand in hand with positioning your customer. And also you can get all like comfortable when you get bunch of tattoos there, 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 and you're like, oh yeah, this is good, because those places are relatively like easy in terms of stretching, and then you get somebody with a little thing here, and you're like, okay, what's wrong with my machines? It's like these needles suck, the ink is not going in, and all that stuff.
That's why. So pretty much like this goes to the point where like it's so hard for anyone to learn all this by just listening. You need sometimes someone to point like you're doing something wrong. It's the same with whatever it is. When you do it for first time, there's no chance that you're gonna do it properly
Unless you're lucky.
Yeah, so this we can go to that how important again is being in the right shop, working with the right people who can teach you things. And sometimes people who already finish his apprenticeship still don't know these things because of the experience. Maybe he never tattooed like whole back piece, and those who did it knows how skin on the bottom works different and top different, and you have to go through this to understand. And it's really good that someone points at you what is wrong. And I think a lot of tattooers don't have this, and sad because you just take longer walk. You need to ask and know what you do wrong instead of asking and saying, what do you think about my design, and hoping that it's gonna be beautiful what the guy says, you know.
Yeah.
So
In regards of stretching, there's also like things that work on one place and doesn't work on other, and like you said, this stuff doesn't always work, you know, because you can only
you
work
don't see much
on this space.
Yeah.
Plus, your fingers get tired.
get tired.
There are situations when that's the only option, and you should do
Yeah,
that. But
I've been doing it as
also, this works better on 3-liner than it does on 11, you know, because you have to go in there.
But since I do, like, one thing I really rarely do finger stretching. I always go with all the fucking hand, like I mean it, you know, and then I do it because, like, it's easier for your arm, entire arm, to do this. Some times ago, I did these kind of things, and my bones started to hurt, like it swelled up. It was a big pressure for that part. I think people, when they tattoo and they found one stretching spot, they don't want to like try new ways because they think, okay, I kind of get used to this style, I'm gonna stick with it. But like, just find the most comfy feeling for yourself, and you're gonna be better.
So that leads us into next section of like what's the tripping points of it, because you figure this thing out, it works. But I've noticed myself, I've been tattooing, and sometimes I would be like, I know this, and I catch myself that I'm like stretching with one finger, doing some weird stuff, trying to pull skin around, all that, and then you kind of have to just rethink, and you're like, oh, actually we do this, and you reposition, but you have to kind of try different ways to know them ways, to know in which situation they work. It fucks up experience for you. You're like, my thumb is tired. Like, I've been in situations where it's a bigger piece and you tattoo, and at the end of the session there's some weird body parts you didn't know that you have, they hurt because you just been doing all that weird stuff, and you could actually be like, oh, okay, let's reposition customer. I can maybe stand up, sit down, put my chair down, which is also forgotten. And this is not video on specific stretching for a specific thing, but it's just in general, it's important and how it works. So you have to try different things, and you have to know which works for the situation and for you, because there's different styles, different needle size, different machines,
different arms.
different arms, because people, like, you know, with some skinnier needle it would go in easier, and then you take that bigger one, you pull the line, you're like, it's my perfect line, you wipe it, and then you see half of line is there, half of line is there.
Thinking about lines recently, I realized that there is no better to do line than with the thin liner. This is another big boom that was popular to do fat lines, because old school tattoos who aged a lot looked with thick lines, so they wanted to reproduce that old look. But actually, like, most of the tattooers back in days, they used tiny lines and they were spreading after years. So imagine if you have a thick line, how that shit's gonna spread.
Now with the rotary machines and all that, people start to use shaders for making lines, and it's easier, and it's also kind of like easier to work from that thicker line to put shadow in, because you're not gonna go accidentally across the line, because the line is so thick.
You said good point, like everyone has to find a little like his own way. There is certain things you have to follow, like the things that I told you, like, I mean, so many tattooers do that, and it's not that I took this idea out of my ass head that I want face.
So that's the one is set up on your side and your techniques, and also customer, because you can have this muscly gym guy whose calves are just tight, and you do, like, you can tattoo like this, like a fucking paintbrush, and it's gonna stay because it's just skin is tight. Or you can get like a bigger person but their skin is tight, and you can get this skinny fit person but the skin is sort of loose and super elastic, so it's like, it's so many variables, and then the skin here is different from skin just here and all that, so you have to experience and find what's best for you and what's the backup if that doesn't work, you know?
Like one good, really good tattooer, he's not doing traditional tattoos. He was doing realistic tattoos, freehanding a lot of them. He told me like some crazy thing when I just started tattooing, and it's still this day it's in my head. And I know it sounds crazy for a customer who comes with the biggest trust to you. The truth is like, if you're not gonna experiment and try new things on these people who come in,
or at least your friends.
Yeah, like it's not like everyone who comes in, you're like, fuck it, I'm gonna like do whatever I want, you know. You slowly, step by step, with being safe, you figure out your strategy, you know, and then you slowly, day by day, building up. You don't have to go wild and start to fucking do giant back pieces after 1 month of tattooing. You have to understand, you do it slowly, because there's no way you're gonna do a good back piece, no matter how good artist you are. You just have to train your arms and do the movements. That's not part of artistic world from the schools, you know.
It's a gym.
Yeah, it's like you have to build your muscles for fucking tattooing almost, you know.
Also, so, yeah. But it's a thing, it's a muscle memory. But
yes,
also
exactly.
I wanted to mention that all that stretching thing, and you found your way, but there will be situations where you just can't physically do it. Like you suddenly tattoo something here, and if you want to stretch your way, you will be just choking customer, you know. And also like positioning, you can be like, oh, let's take this pillow off and turn your head this way, and then you maybe have to do that weird stuff. I had it on convention where it's like I didn't have much space and I was tattooing lady here. I'm here in this position, there's not much options of moving around. Then again, if I wanna stretch perfectly, I will fucking fall into her vagina, because it's just there, you know. So I also have to be somewhat respectful. So you had to, like, I had to do all that little line thing and all that, because I couldn't just that, because that would be just straight up, and the stomachs can stretch a mile.
Well, you know, I had these moments in my career where I was tattooing already like 10th neck, and I still didn't figure out how to do it properly, and I could see the lines are not how it should be. And I started, like, every time I went to the convention, I saw someone gets neck tattoo, I was really paying attention. I was like going and seeing if he has the same weird lines as me. Maybe, I don't know how tattoo looks on neck in a close-up when it's fresh, you know. So I wanted to figure out, and I've seen so many tattooers have problems actually with neck tattoos. The same with stomach and ribs. These are like hard spots. And one thing I learned, how to be sure that you can do the best work on that place that's hard to tattoo, you have to have really good machines. And if machine, like I had some good machines, it's legit shit, workhorse irons, I love it. That's what I started with basically. That shit didn't work for me, and I'm not a guy who set up really crazy machines and do different setups. So for me it didn't work. And when I changed the machine, with all the stretching I had experienced, I could do neck tattoos.
But at least with not having the best out of best machine for a specific task, you learned all the other things that can improve. Man, I had that dude with the big tunnel in the ear, and he had this little logo behind his ear. Stretching, positioning. I think we fucking taped his thing up so it's not in a way, because otherwise like I stretch it and then I have to do all that stuff to get the thing out of way. So I think he had it so big that he could flip it over, so that was out of way. He did a knot out of and then like no pillow, so it's all stretched, like, you know, look this way, then you do a bit of this on his face and stuff, and it works. But there's all these weird situations.
Same with the boob thing, like when you lift it up or when you tape it, or when you, like, some people are shy. We talked about this as well, like every time.
Also, that's another thing from you, when it's all this collarbone stuff, then maybe instead of laying them down, having them halfway sitting, because especially on ladies, there's a lot of movement situations. So you stick a stencil when she's standing up, she lays down. This thing goes up, tattoo ends up being here. It's all like stretchy and all that. So once you get the gravity involved, that already helps you, and then you can have them Like
Yeah,
they don't
yeah,
have to be sitting, but they can be.
laying down a bit. Like actually sometimes even this angle works. I like when I do chest piece, there is no way I'm putting person completely fucking what is it, like 100 180
Horizontal.
horizontal. So I need to bend a bit the back. So I mean, like there's so much to talk. We don't have to talk all that out, so we can continue with our episodes. So follow us.
Let's talk about the weird stuff and the dangerous stuff. So maybe you can tell a bit about your story with your hand. Basically, I came to work to the same shop with Carlos, and Carlos was off because he had a, like I have an implant in my hand. He had a bump, same kind of size.
When I was a kid, I had an accident. I fell down on my, like, I mean, every kid had that shit. I was skating and I fell down and I
Cracked the bone or
yeah,
something.
or something. I never went to the doctor or whatever. And when I started tattooing after like 4th year or so, after stretching, the bone started to hurt. And I had a big bump here on the wrist. And it was just getting bigger, swell up, and it was painful. Of course, I didn't go to the doctor. I think I had like,
You had to wear a shin or something.
yeah. I bought some shin, the medical stuff you can buy in pharmacy, and I was wearing that and tattooing with that stuff. So it went away. There was less irritation on that damage, but after that, it all went good. I was again tattooing for 1.5 years. I had nothing, and then again I had this thing hurting more and more, and I was like, fuck again. And then I realized one of the reasons why it starts to hurt, I'm using too tight gloves. And every time I use too tight gloves, and when I have to move this finger and stretch skin, there's a pressure. And this fucking bone that goes here is the one that deals with it. And I have some old problem here, and that's why it was hurting. After I started using bigger, extra large gloves, like I'm a big man, after that everything is fucking working fine. It's the same with the condoms.
Also, on that note, there's also like you can go too hardcore and you can overstretch the skin, because sometimes you like just. You have to find your sweet spot, because sometimes, especially on those stretchy areas or more elastic skin, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and you do the line, and you're like, fuck yeah, nailed it, and you let it go, and it goes like,
It's
what is the
snake goes
thing?
together.
So another thing is not to overdo stuff, not to go too like. And now you share your little dirty secrets on stretching skin, or maybe a funny story is how it backfired. And likes, comments, subscribe to channels, watch these videos, and see you in the future.
Yeah, don't be shy, goddamn.
God damn it.